Okay, great. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Lots of people coming through. 400 people register to join this webinar. You're very popular, Kim. Uh,
Nice to hear.
yeah, no, I mean, obviously, super hot topic, and lots of changes that have been announced throughout this year. So I'm sure there's lots and lots of questions. As we know, before, as people were registering, they were able to give us questions in advance, and so we've got some of those questions ready to go. We're up to just about 100 in the room at the moment, so we'll give it another couple of minutes just to see. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're really happy that you can join us on this Tuesday lunchtime, and special thanks to Kim Day, who's with us from White Rose. Afternoon, Kim. How are you today?
Hi, Adam. Yeah, all good. It's a bit rainy where I am in the UK, but never mind.
Okay.
We're all here to learn lots about immigration law this afternoon. So what better way to spend a rainy afternoon?
Absolutely. It's rainy here too. I'm looking out onto the rain. Such a hot weekend. It was baking hot and it's just changed, right? Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. My mum would say we need it. The gardens need it, but I prefer the
yes.
sunshine personally.
Me too, me too. Well, look, so I think, as you know, Kim, on here today, it's mostly international students that are studying or have studied in the UK. There's a few from universities outside the UK that may be looking for ways in to work once they've completed their studies. But I think we'll find that most people here today are studying postgraduate, and they are obviously currently on some form of visa and looking for options when they graduate. So I think we've got lots to talk about. I imagine that people will still come through, but let's get started. So again, thank you for joining us. Would you like to give us a brief introduction about yourself, and yeah, tell us who you are and how you can help us.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Adam. Thanks to everyone for coming along. Yeah, I'm Kim Day from White Rose Visas. I've been working in immigration law for about 20 years now, and I actually started my career working at Sheffield University in the Student Advice Centre there as an international
Amazing.
student advisor. So
Wow.
it's lovely to be chatting to so many international students today, and I think there's a few people from careers services here today as well. So lovely to meet you all. Yeah, we at White Rose Visas, we specialise. We're immigration lawyers. We don't deal with any other sort of law, so we're specialists in this area. And yeah, I'll start off, I think, Adam, with a quick overview of the graduate visa and the skilled worker visa, and then I know we've got a lot of questions that a lot of
We
participants
have.
have put in today, which is fabulous. So we'll move on to those. But yeah, just to start with a sort of brief overview of the two main visa routes that you'd be looking for really after you've completed your studies in the UK. So we've got the graduate visa, which used to be called post-study work, PSW. Some of you may be on that already. Some of you may be looking to switch into that route. So that is the graduate visa is the name of that now. Um, that's granted for 2 years, and that enables you to work in the UK after your studies without restriction. So you can do any sorts of jobs, you can be self-employed, you can be part-time, full-time, you can have periods of not working. So it's a fabulous visa, it's very flexible, very popular. Um, so that's probably your sort of the easiest option once you've
Mhm.
finished your studies here. And we'll talk a bit later on in the questions about technicalities around how to obtain that visa and any other sort of pros and cons with that. But that's the first main visa that you'd be looking at. The other option is to look at a skilled worker visa. which again used to be called Tier 2 General. You might get some people still referring it to that, but the correct name for it now is the Skilled Worker Visa.
Okay.
And that is a visa where if you have an offer of employment from a UK employer who's registered with the Home Office, they can issue you with a certificate of sponsorship and you can apply for a skilled worker visa. That visa just permits you to work for that one particular employer. You can do some supplementary employment as well, but if you wanted to take on a different job, you'd have to switch your visa. Whereas with the graduate visa, you've got a lot more flexibility in there with that. So those are the two main options that we're looking at when you finish your studies in the UK at the moment.
Okay, great. Thank you. And that's very clear and great with the terminology as well, because I've been hearing graduate visa, I've been hearing PSW. So right now, the correct terminology is the graduate visa, right? And then the skilled worker rather than the tier. Great. Well, thank you. That's gave us a really good overview of what's available. Most of the questions are related to those two visas, but then there are some questions outside of that. So we've had over 100 questions. So obviously we only have 40 minutes or so. We can't ask all of those. So we've grouped some of the questions together. Hopefully to cover the main topics, and then maybe move on to some more specific questions. If we don't get through all the specific questions, I know that Kim, you're happy to speak to the students, and well, your team happy to speak to the students after the webinar over the coming weeks. We can talk more about that at the end. So let's start. And the first question comes from multiple people. It's quite a generic one, but a few people have asked this. Omkar in Edinburgh, Yuan in Kings, Sydney who's in St Andrews, Grace who's at St Andrews. Quite a few people would like to know when they can start to apply for the graduate visa. So simple question, when can we start to apply for a graduate visa?
So it's a simple question, but it's a very good question actually, because it's something where there's a potential pitfall here. So the legislation is very clear that you must not apply for your graduate visa until the university has notified the Home Office that you have successfully completed your course.
Oh,
So if you've completed your course, but the Home Office have not been notified of this, and you applied for a graduate visa, then you could be looking at a refusal. So it's a very good question. It's a sort of quite a technical point here. I mean, the short answer is that you apply for your graduate visa when you finished your course. But you just need to be 100% sure that you've got confirmation from Student Services that they have notified the Home Office that you've completed your course successfully. Because if you applied for your visa on the 20th of July and the Home Office weren't notified that you'd completed your course until the 21st of July, then you would be looking at a refusal. So
oh,
really
wow.
important point here that, you know, can trip people up at times. You've got to make sure that that report has been sent to the Home Office.
Right. And is it easy to get that clarification?
It should be. Most universities are fabulous at this, and Student
Yeah.
Services are doing a really good job
So,
at or International Student Services, whoever's dealing with that, will normally email you to let you know that yes, the report has been made to the Home Office.
okay, perfect. Yes, because
Yeah.
Fatima's just asking the question here, who will apply to the Home Office about the completion of the course, the student or the university? But it's the university that notifies. Yeah.
They must notify the Home Office, exactly. So it's the student who makes the application for the visa,
Yeah.
but they must not do that until the university has notified the Home Office of the successful completion.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Okay, thank you. We have got more questions coming in. Let's just see if they're relevant to this one or questions for later on. Okay, we've got some questions coming in about sponsorship. I think we can come to that in a little bit. Got a couple more questions first, but thank you. Keep the questions coming. A question that I've seen coming up quite a bit, and I think it's Riaka at King's and Nickit at Manchester. And please, everybody, excuse my pronunciation if I don't get your name quite right. But definitely a handful of people asking about extending their visa while they're searching for a job. Uh, is it possible? And if so, how can they extend their visa while they're searching for a job?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, when you're coming to the end of your student visa, I would say if you haven't got a job, then go for the graduate visa. So if you're coming to the end of your student visa, then the obvious option there is to go for a graduate visa. I'm not sure whether people asking this question are talking about being at the end of their graduate visa or if they're talking
Mm,
about being at the end of their student visa. If
okay.
if you're at the end of your graduate visa, and you haven't been able to find a job, you're wanting to move into that skilled worker route, but you haven't been able to find a job, then there may be some options to extend your visa temporarily, but you have to be very careful, really, about how you proceed at this point. So if you were just sort of expecting to get a certificate of sponsorship within the next few weeks and you just needed a very short extension, then there are some ways in which we can help you to temporarily extend your visa. But
Okay.
those would be in extreme circumstances. Normally, you want to be moving from a student visa directly to a graduate visa or to the skilled worker visa.
And there's enough buffer time there to do that.
Well, you'd
So,
want to be, normally your student visa would be granted for 3 or 4 months after your studies end.
okay.
So you should have time once you've, handed in your dissertation, completed your
Hmm.
final exams. You've got a few months there really to either
Yeah.
be finding a job offer or to be applying for the graduate visa. There may be sort of odd situations where someone's had to do some retakes maybe, or unusual circumstances. In those cases, just have a chat with us and we'll talk through whether there are any sort of exceptional circumstances that could allow you to make a different sort of application.
Okay, super. Thank you. So I've got a question here. So thank you earlier on. You gave us a nice clear overview of the graduate visa and of the skilled worker. A few people, including Abhishek in Kings, Carlson from Manchester, are asking which route is better. So is the graduate route better than the skilled worker? And especially if they're applying for indefinite leave, does it make a difference?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So thanks to everyone who's asked that today and everyone who sent that in before as well. That's been a popular question. Um, there's pros and cons, I would say. The graduate visa is better in terms of flexibility because you've got 2 years to have that flexibility to look for different jobs, to move between jobs, to look at self-employment. You've got a lot of options there. Um, However, that route does not directly lead to indefinite leave to remain.
Okay.
So time spent in the graduate route will count towards a 10-year route to
Mm-hmm.
settlement, but not towards a 5-year route to
Right.
settlement. And this question gets a bit even trickier to answer because of the changes that are coming up,
Right.
that have been announced in the white paper, which again I know a lot of you are aware of and have asked
Mm,
questions on that. So if you'd
mm.
asked me this question, 6 months ago, Adam, I would have said, it's probably better to get on the skilled worker route because you
Right.
start your 5-year clock running
Ah,
for
okay.
ILR.
Hmm.
However, unfortunately, something I never thought would happen under a Labour government, the immigration rules are being tightened up immensely, and the proposal now is that the standard length of time anyone will need to spend in a visa route to gain indefinite leave to remain is going to be increased from 5 years to 10 years. So
Okay.
this is a major shake-up,
Huge, yeah.
of our immigration system, um, and it will bring all sorts of difficulties to people. But to sort of circle back to the initial question, in that sense, these proposals will happen, and given that the audience today is sort of at the start of that process, it really doesn't matter in terms of ILR, because if you're looking at 10 years before you can gain indefinite leave to remain, you know, you can include time spent on your student visa and
Hmm.
your graduate visa in a 10-year route anyway. So the 5-year route for skilled worker is not looking, so attractive any longer,
Mm.
in the current climate.
Okay. Very interesting. Thank you. Very timely questions here.
Mm.
Okay, thank you. Um, Question that's coming. There's a few questions coming up about this the switch from student to graduate visa. Quite a lot of people, various questions here from Hanset at King's, Winamora in Edinburgh, Varshini in Brighton, Sophia at King's, Shirag Manchester, all asking similar questions. So I'm going to group them together, which is, can you switch from a student visa to a graduate visa while you're outside the UK? Does it have to happen here? Because it seems that people want to be going home, they're visiting family or over the holidays. Also, if they plan to apply for a graduate visa, can they return home before applying? And is there any time limit? So I guess the question here is, can they apply for a graduate visa outside of the country while they're on a student visa?
So unfortunately, it's not possible to apply for a graduate visa outside the UK.
Oh,
Not possible
wow.
at all.
Okay.
So if you submit
Okay.
that
Goodness.
application outside the UK, it will be refused and you will not get your application fee
Wow.
refunded. So it's not possible to do that. It must be submitted inside the UK. If somebody wants to travel home at the end of their studies, and then come back to the UK, they would be able to do so, provided that their student visa was still valid. They would be able to come back to the UK and then submit the application from in the UK,
Okay.
but they must have the student visa. That the student visa must still be valid when they return to the UK in order to make that graduate application. It wouldn't be any good if you left the UK and you came back on a visitor visa, for example. You would not then be able to switch to the graduate visa. So the two
Wow.
conditions that you need to meet to successfully apply for that graduate visa are that you must be in the UK and that your current period of permission to stay must be as a student.
Okay. Okay. Great, thank you. There's lots of other questions that are coming up around this. What I think we'll do is work through some of the questions I've got here, and then we can go back and see if they've been answered. I've seen one or two questions that I think some of the other questions we're already going to ask those questions, but if not, if we've got time, we'll go back. What's the question here? Is there a timeline as to how long we're allowed to stay overseas on a graduate visa? Um, so if they're on a graduate
Okay.
visa, yeah,
So that's a good question. I think I've understood
that's
it correctly.
Varshini.
So
Thank you,
this
Varshini.
is somebody who's got a graduate visa already. So say you've come to the end of your studies, you've switched in the UK from a student to a graduate visa. You
Mm,
then want to go back home, or maybe you need to go back home because of health
mm.
issues or family issues. There's no time limit. No maximum amount of time in which you would be permitted to stay outside the UK. So you could potentially get your, graduate visa and leave straight away and leave for a year and then come back
Okay.
on that
Ah,
graduate visa. It's not going to expire. The only thing you'd want to just be mindful of would be in terms of a future ILR application, we'd always be looking at absence limits for that.
mhm.
And again, that varies whether it's a 10-year or a 5-year route, but you certainly don't want to be outside the UK for more than 6 months consecutively,
Right.
if you're looking for ILR in the future.
Mhm. And the next question, just because it keeps popping up, and I've seen this, Bella's just asked this and other questions. This might be the how long is a piece of string question, but how long does it take to get a visa from the application? Because I guess people are thinking maybe, obviously, from the graduate to the, from the student to the graduate, you've got to be thinking about the time. Is there an answer, or is it a piece of string?
I mean, normally we're seeing graduate applications approved within about 3 to 4 weeks at the
Oh, wow.
moment. They're,
Okay.
they're fairly speedy. It's also worth noticing that you don't need to have your graduate visa granted before your student visa expires. You simply need to have submitted the application.
Ah,
So if your student visa expires, say on the 5th of September, but you
mm,
submitted your graduate application on the 4th of September,
mm.
even though the Home Office are going to take 3 or 4 weeks to grant that graduate visa, you would still be permitted to stay in the UK lawfully during
Okay.
that time. So
Ah,
sometimes people get worried and think, well, they need a decision before their student visa expires. That's not the case. You simply
right.
need to make sure that you've submitted your application before your
Okay.
student visa expires.
Really good to know. Thank you, Kim. Thank you. Okay. So now a lot of people, obviously you referred earlier to the changes and what's been happening recently. So Ashwin at Kent University, Riker at Imperial, Soliel in Edinburgh, Naomi in Manchester, Anne in Manchester, Joyce in Kings, they are all asking if you can confirm if the graduate visa is still going to be granted for 2 years, and how to get it, how to obtain that visa.
Yeah, a great question and very timely because at the moment, if you apply for a graduate visa today and it's granted, you will get 2 years. We do know, however, that the white paper very clearly states the intention to reduce that to 18 months. So going forward, when the new legislative changes are introduced, you will be getting 18 months on this visa instead of 2 years. And now I
Okay.
know everybody's going to ask me the next question, when is this coming into
Kim,
effect? And if I had a crystal ball, my best guess is the autumn for the next set of legislative changes. We've had the white paper, proposals now. We see what's coming. We've had the first set of the legislative changes introduced, which will take effect from the 22nd of July. That was announced on the 1st of July. We were given 21 days for the new legislation to come into force. So the first set of those changes, which are affecting mostly the skilled worker route, they are coming into effect on the 22nd of July. We don't have any other timescale for any of the other proposals, but we do know they're going to happen. So my advice would be anyone who's planning to apply for a graduate visa, do it as soon as you possibly can. As soon as you've got that email stating that your university has confirmed they've reported to the Home Office successful completion of studies, get your application in, because again, you're protected then if a statement of changes about the new legislation is announced the next day, you are protected under the old rules. You will get your 2 years instead of your 18 months. Adam, I've lost you. I can't hear you. We can't hear you.
You hear me now?
Yeah, you're back now.
Hello?
Yeah.
I'm back. Okay, I'll take the headphones off. So I was just saying, there's some questions that are coming through. Maybe people that have joined a little bit later. I think we may have answered some of them. So just so everybody knows, the recording of this will be available maybe from tomorrow. So if we've answered some of the questions, if you join late, you can go back into the webinar and watch it from the beginning, and maybe some of those questions will be answered. moving on to the next question. So quite a few people here, and there's lots of questions that have been coming up, and I think they are going to be answered in this one. So Muford in Brighton, Benjamin at Imperial, Rassan at Kings, Abina in Hull, Rageth in Westminster, Karen at Wolverhampton, Tibetchi at Northumbria, and lots of people today are asking, apart from the traditional work visa and the graduate visa, are there any other legal pathways that might enable me to work inside the UK? And I know that one of the questions, and I mentioned it to you before, Kim, is the global talent, I think, is one of the options. And people have been asking about the global talent visa. So other than graduate and skilled workers, what are the options?
Yeah, great question. And I know there's been a lot of interest in the global talent visa. So this is it for anybody who may be a leader or a potential leader in their field. The fields that are currently covered by the global talent are academia or research, arts and culture, and digital technology. So if you feel that you are a leader or a potential leader in one of those fields, you can apply to something called an endorsing body, who can assess your potential, your career to date, any publications you might have, any research, any awards that you may have won, and they can consider whether or not you're suitable for an endorsement under global talent. So this is a visa that it's not possible simply to apply for this visa in the same way that it is, that you can apply for a graduate visa. You will get that visa if you've successfully completed a UK degree. You simply apply for that and you will get that. With global talent, there's this sort of additional stage that you have to go through where you have to obtain your endorsement from an endorsing body. First of all, they're satisfied you're a leader or a potential leader. They give you the endorsement letter and you use that then to apply for the global talent. So it's a possibility. I would say that we get a lot of queries about this, and it's not easy to obtain endorsements.
Okay.
So I wouldn't want to put anybody off. And clearly, we've got sort of a lot of the brightest and best in seminars here today, because of the studies that you've done in the UK. But it is you would need to be sort of exceptional amongst your peers, I would say, to apply for global talent. So that's sort of one option. Other options at the moment, if you're not looking at the graduate or the skilled worker route, there is the innovator route. We do have that. That is for somebody who wants to set up a business in the UK. It must be innovative, and again, they must get an endorsement from an endorsing body. This route has really tightened up in recent years. The number of innovative founder visas that are granted these days are much lower than it used to be. The number of endorsing bodies has reduced down greatly, and I think the sort of the concept of what's innovative and acceptable to the government has really narrowed. So we are finding problems with the innovator route. I think if anybody's considering that, have a chat with us at White Rose Visas, so we can discuss sort of any, potential pitfalls. It can be a good route still. It's an accelerated route to settlement, so you would get settlement after just 3 years. So it's very appealing in that sense. But as I say, we are seeing some difficulties with this route. So that's one for a bit more of an in-depth chat. And then the other two sort of possibilities that there might be for students are, one would be a dependent route. So say, for example, you're here with your husband or wife in the UK, and your partner has a skilled worker visa or a graduate visa, then it may be possible for you to move into a visa as their dependent, which then would allow you to work or set up in self-employment yourself. The final sort of strand, which is part of the skilled worker route, but there is a concept around a sort of self-sponsorship.
There's a
within
question I
skilled
saw.
worker. Yeah, okay. So we've had some questions on that.
Yeah.
We've got some blog posts on our website
Okay.
about the self-sponsorship. Again, it's quite a complex route. It's not for everybody. But if, for example, you've got someone who's been on a graduate visa for a couple of years, has established a successful business in the UK, and now needs to stay to progress that business, it may be possible for the company to obtain a sponsor license and sponsor the founder under the skilled worker. So that's kind of what we mean in a nutshell when we talk about self-sponsorship. I won't go into great detail about that in this seminar because it is extremely complex. We could spend 45 minutes just talking about self-sponsorship.
Yes.
But that's another sort of strand for people to keep on their radar.
Super good, thank you. That's really good. I say we had a lot of questions around the global talent, so that's really useful to hear about. Syed, if you're here, Syed from Hull University was asking about self-sponsorship. So Syed, please go to the White Rose website and check out the blogs there. Lots of people, and I think it's a tangent, maybe not for now if we have time after, but you mentioned dependents. A lot of people are asking about their dependents and can they bring dependents in on graduate visas if they were on student visas. What was the last one? Could I get my spouse? So this was Paula Gonzalez. Could my spouse join me in the UK if I go through the graduate visa route, even though he was not my dependent on my student visa? It's a different
No,
application, right?
Yeah, so this is again a sort of technicality that you need to have had someone as your dependent on your student visa in order to include them as a dependent on your graduate. So this does catch people out sometimes.
There you go, Paula Gonzalez. There's your answer. Sadly, it's not possible. Okay, so another question that's been coming up is people, and I think we touched slightly on it there. Is they've been working for the company for the 2 years. The visa comes to an end, but they want to stay, and the employer wants to keep them. Is that possible, Kim?
Yeah, it's certainly possible. It's very common. We work with a lot of companies, quite sort of small companies who maybe wouldn't have thought about getting a sponsor license, but because they've had someone working for them on a graduate visa, that they really want to retain that person. It's a straightforward process for that company to obtain a sponsor license and then to issue a certificate of sponsorship, so that then that worker can change from graduate onto the skilled worker visa. So that's certainly possible. It's fairly minimal costs involved for the employer, and it makes sense because they've spent 2 years working with a really good employee. They want to retain them, so they would be able to move them over onto the skilled worker visa, provided, of course, that it was a job that was at a high enough skill level. Because one of the changes that is coming in from next week on the 22nd of July is that the skilled worker route is only going to be available for jobs that are classified at RQF level 6. So at graduate level. So you couldn't be working at, as a restaurant manager, for example, on your graduate visa and then move over to a skilled worker visa because the role wouldn't be considered to be highly skilled enough.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you. Something that's been coming up a lot, and I don't know, you can say maybe park this for later, but I've seen it pop up a couple of times, and I think I know the answer, but I probably don't. People are asking if there's a company that really wants to sponsor me, and they're not registered with the Home Office. I guess that company just needs to make the application to the Home Office, right? It's nothing I can do. I want to work for them. They want me, but they're not registered yet. It's down to the company to follow the process and register.
Yeah, you can't apply for a skilled worker visa unless you've got that certificate of sponsorship from your employer, and they can't issue that until they've got their sponsor license. So you're right, Adam, that the company needs to apply for that sponsor license, you can encourage them to do that, you know, and talk to them about the merits of that, but they need to do that themselves, and then they issue that certificate of sponsorship. You use that then to make your skilled worker visa application.
Yeah, great. Thank you. That was Azatul. Azatul was asking about that because he's worked for them on a graduate, but they want to take him full time. So yes, the company now needs to register. Okay, Mohammed, if you want to type your question, we'll see if we can answer that. Hands up. Great. Great to see the interaction. Loads of people chatting, loads of people interacting. Really, really great to see. So many questions. We're not going to get through them all. Kim, is there a salary bracket? Because you've just mentioned there about graduate jobs, so being the graduate level, right? Does that also mean that there is a salary bracket? This is something that I think it's JF at Liverpool University, Eamon at Glasgow Caledonian, Sad at Strathclyde. They were asking this question. So it's not just about the level, but is there also a salary bracket for the various visas?
There is. So nothing that applies to a graduate visa, because you're just getting that from the fact that you've completed your studies. But if you're looking at a skilled worker visa, then the minimum salary at the moment is 38,700, which is rising from next Tuesday to 41,700.
Oh, wow.
So these are high salaries for the skilled worker route. Now, for anyone who is on a graduate visa, they would benefit from something called a new entrant rate, which reduces that down. So currently that would be about 30,000. It's 30,960 at the moment for skilled workers who are qualifying for that new entrant rate. That will be increasing next week to around about 33,000. So this can sometimes be a problem, really. You know, if you've had someone who's been on a graduate visa, they've been working for an employer, maybe earning 28, 29,000, and then they want to convert to the skilled worker visa, and there's a significant increase in salary required, in order to leap up to that skilled worker visa.
Okay, thank you. A question that I've seen pop up a few times, it's just come here, is around when can we start working full-time on a student visa?
So the legislation says that you can work full-time during holidays and when your course has completed. So you're permitted to work on a part-time basis during your studies, and then full-time during vacations or when you've completed your studies. Okay. So you can do that, you know, while you've maybe applied for your graduate visa, it hasn't come through yet, but you finished your studies. You can start working on a full-time basis because you've completed your studies, and then obviously that then segues into you continuing to work on the graduate visa.
Fantastic. Okay. We mentioned earlier about timelines. You said we're looking at 3 to 4 weeks for a graduate visa, which is great. Is it expensive? Some people here, Ahmed at Imperial, Madusan at Wolverhampton, asking about the timelines, which we mentioned, but also about the cost.
So you've got the visa fee for the graduate visa, which is £880. You've also got the immigration health surcharge, which is £1,035 per year of visa granted. So you're looking at about £2,000 in the IHS and about another £1,000 with the visa fee. So it's going to cost around £3,000 for you to get the graduate visa. Okay.
There we go. It's not cheap, right? Thank you. Okay. Let's have a quick look. Oh, there's more and more questions coming in, and we've only got about 5 minutes left. We're not going to answer them all. This is. I wished we could. Again, we've kind of touched on this, but are there any restrictions for the graduate visa? Any job restrictions? Gabby in Edinburgh is asking this.
No restrictions at all, which is one of the reasons it makes the visa category so popular, you know, because of the flexibility. So you can do, you know, you can work in Costa on this visa, you can be a neurosurgeon on this visa, you know, you can do whatever you want with that. So it's flexible.
Okay, great, thank you. So there's lots of individual, very specific questions coming up, which we're going to part to keep it generic. Again, if you joined us late, Kim's team will be available for consultations to answer very specific questions. Today we'll keep it as general as possible. So again, we talked earlier on about the 5-10-year routes to indefinite leave, which are changing. What is the path to permanent residency or citizenship?
Yeah, so we've always had two routes historically in the UK. A long residence route, which is that if you've lived in the UK for 10 years in any combination of categories, you are eligible to apply for indefinite leave to remain. That's been the longer route. We've also had shorter routes, so 5 years. For example, if you're here as the partner of a British national, after 5 years, you would get your indefinite leave to remain. And traditionally, on the working visa, if you've held a skilled worker visa for 5 years, you would become eligible for indefinite leave to remain. That is the route that's changing. It's going to increase the standard time for anyone on a working visa from 5 years to 10 years. Although the government has said there will be some provisions to reduce that period down based on contributions to society and economy. They haven't told us what those contributions will look like. They haven't told us what sort of period you might be expecting, whether it would still be possible to get ILR after 5 years or 6 or 4, we don't know. One of the questions that came up earlier was asking about when these changes would come in for the 18 months for the graduate visa, for the 5 years to 10 years for skilled worker. We don't know. The government hasn't given any indication of timescale. They have said on some of the changes they will consult in the autumn. So my best guess is that these changes will come in the autumn or possibly early next year, but I think sooner than that, given what we've seen with the 22nd of July changes. So that's a long answer to your question, Adam, but yeah, it's a 5-year or 10-year route to settlement, and generally at the moment the principle is that you could apply for British citizenship 1 year after you've gained your ILR.
Okay, great, thank you. And I think, I'm not sure if we've answered this in that, but John Matt is saying a student visa, graduate visa is 3 years in total. What kind of visa will you then be on after the 2 have expired for the remaining 7 years? Well, that's kind of what we covered earlier, right? The various different visas, whether it's it's the company can sponsor you, you can be self-sponsored, global talent. So it's
any combination to answer that question, and maybe a traditional route, a most common route would be a student for 1 year, graduate visa for 2 years, then you move into a working category, skilled worker for the other 7 years. Yeah.
Okay. Wow, look, it's a minefield. It's a minefield. I think we're almost out of time. We started with 100 questions before we came in, and there's been more coming through, and I wish we could answer every question. I hope that for everyone that's joined us today, we've covered most of the main topics. I know so many people are concerned with the recent white paper and the changes that are happening. Kim, I think you've given us some really clear, great answers. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that today. My apologies to everybody whose questions we couldn't answer. We wished we could. But you have your amazing careers departments. They can answer lots of other questions, certainly questions around companies, which companies may be able to sponsor you and how to do that. So always be reaching out to your careers departments, your career services, They support you both right now as you're studying, but also post-graduation as well. So make use of them. They're fabulous and have a wealth of knowledge. For really specific immigration questions, and I know we have some today, reach out to Kim and her team. We will send you all her details, the White Rose details, and they will offer a short consultation. Maybe they can answer your questions, maybe they can offer you more help, but they are on hand after this. For me at Global Career Advantage, thank you for joining us today. Huge thank you to Kim. Really, really valuable information at a really key time, I think. Be interesting to see how everything unfolds. For joining us today, please, we will send you an email. We'll send you Kim's contact details. We'll also ask you for some feedback about the webinar and for future webinars that we can provide to support you. Also do sign up to our newsletter, because then we can inform you of upcoming webinars that hopefully will help you with your future careers. Sign up for the webinars, give us feedback, we'll enter you into a draw, we'll give somebody a free coaching session. Kim, thank you again. Really, really superb advice today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Adam. It's been lovely to be part of this, and thanks to everyone for listening. And yeah, we're very happy to speak to anyone any point. So yeah, thanks again, Adam.
Superb. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for joining.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll see you at the next webinar coming up next month. Be the first to hear about it in our newsletter. Sign up after this webinar. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Tuesday afternoon, wherever you are. I hope it's not raining where you are. It is here. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Goodness, almost 170 people joined at one point, I think. But it's such a hot topic, right? Such a hot topic. Okay. I think if I click end event, you may still be here, Kim. I'm not sure. If not, we'll push it back. Okay. Let's see what happens.